at least not in Philadelphia. We'll talk about that and more on this episode of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On 76ers. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Thanks for making Locked On 76er your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, I want to talk to y'all about the draft. The draft is coming up on Thursday, and it doesn't even seem like a draft. I want to talk about that. We also want to talk about George Niang, and I want to talk about Jalen McDaniels, right? These are two guys that I think the 76ers should try to bring back, right? And we'll talk about that. We'll discuss those three. But first, I want to talk about the draft, right? Now, here's the thing. Right now, you look at the 76ers. The 76ers don't have a draft pick, right? They don't. They gave up their first round pick. Well, their first round pick actually goes to the Brooklyn Nets in the James Harden trade. They don't have any second round picks because they lost their second round picks due to tampering allegations that they have. So, right now the 76ers are going to try to see if they can, purchase some draft picks so they can get in the second round, right? Try or trade for them, whatever. But when you look at this is kind of different, Phil, for me, because right now the draft is coming up on Thursday, and I remember my first couple of years of covering the Sixers, the draft was everything. I mean, I think for the fans, the pinnacle of the season was the NBA draft, right? It was everything. It was like you would go to the lottery, like, let's play this. The season was their tanking, right? And then the first couple of years of the process, the season was all about tanking so you can get these draft picks, right? And then the lottery would come. And then everyone was excited to see what pick the sisters would get in the draft. Then the draft would come and it was all about who they were going to draft. And then from there, it was all about Summer League. It was like they're going to go to they maybe go to the Orlando Summer League, and then they would go to the Las Vegas Summer League, or a couple of times they went to Utah and then went to Vegas. And to me, that was like the pinnacle of my summer. It was everything, or even the season, the pinnacle of the season of the year. You got like Joel Embiid didn't play, like Nerlens Noel didn't play in there, but then Ben Simmons came about, and it was all about Ben. Then Markel Fultz, Jaleel Okafor, like all these guys, it was all about what they were going to do. And then the season came about, and it's like tanking again for more picks, right? Now it's different. Now it's all about what is James Harden going to do. I mean, seriously. And right now, a lot of people around the league, a month ago, everybody thought the expectation that he was going to go back to Houston. Right now, the talk is he might be torn. It's a matter of like, is Houston trying to give him more than just 2 years? The Sixers trying to give him more. So there's a lot of people thinking that he may stay in Philly. But I'm just here to tell you, the Sixers don't have any draft picks. So there's no excitement. All the excitement is on what is James Harden going to do? And are the 76ers going to re-sign George Niang or George Niang in free agency? Are they going to re-sign Jalen McDaniels? What about Paul Reed? Montrezl Harrell, is he going to pick up his option? Those are all the questions. Now, we already know that Daniel House Jr. is going to pick up his, right? What about Tobias Harris? If James Harden stays or go, are the 76ers going to be able to trade James Harden? Or are they going to want to? So right now it's a weird feeling, man, because this draft really doesn't mean anything. I hate to say it. Now, also the good thing about the Sixers is that, right now where they are, the fact that they don't have any draft picks, aside from possibly trading that draft pick and getting the veteran in exchange for the pick, it's one of those things where it doesn't matter because a draft pick is not going to help, or a draft young first round pick, or in this scenario, a young late first round pick, it's not going to help them win a championship. They need veterans. And the good thing is you got a guy like Jaden Springer, a guy who they drafted 2 years ago. He's 20 years old now in his third year. He didn't get to play a lot. So he could be utilized as a draft pick, right? A young guy who could come in and do something. But for the most part, this isn't where the Sixers are. Like, the Sixers are a team who basically need veteran help. A team that, like I said, their priorities, number one, is with James Harden. Number two is also getting this roster together, re-signing players, and that's where they stand. So when we look at this team, and we say stuff, it's like the draft doesn't matter, and to me, it's just a weird feeling because, again, this is a dead time. I hate to say it. It's like the calm before the storm, like I normally say about before I go to an NBA game. But it's just weird and strange because, right now when it comes down to the 76ers, it's all about free agency. It's not about draft picks. And that's how it typically is for other teams. But man, I'm telling you, um, with no draft picks, last year or a couple years ago, we went all out and we did a lot of things. But right now, there's not a lot to do. Really is not. I mean, because they're just not invited to the party, so to speak. But it is what it is. It is what it is. You know, So we'll see. But right now, I want to talk to you guys about eBay Motors. Right, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay's guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So, while we worry about eBay Motors and we talk about it, the one guy that I think I want to talk to you guys about, um, George Niang, right? I think George Niang, especially, I think George Niang is a guy that the 76ers need to move forward with. I really like George. I also think that when we talk about the 76ers and we talk about where they are as a team in regards to like salary cap and everything like that, I think that he's a perfect fit. Now, again, I get it. There are some people say, Keith, look, George was a defensive liability. right? He needs to get his defense. He needs to improve his defense. I get that. I understand that a lot. However, I also think that a shooter like that is hard to come by in this league. I feel like that the defense is something that you can work on. Is 1-2, is lateral movement, is a lot of things. I mean, when we look at Tobias Harris, right? When Tobias Harris came to the 76ers, he was a defensive liability. That's what he was known for. He didn't play D. Where when he was in Detroit, when he was with the Clippers, Orlando, he wasn't known as a defensive player. But what happened is he had to fulfill a role here in Philadelphia. And in the playoffs, he was their best perimeter defender. I know people say, what you talking about, perimeter defender? He's a power forward. Yes, he is, but he can play in the perimeter. He can guard different positions. And he was their best defender. When Matisse Thybulle left, he had to assume a lot of those roles. So it's going to be harder for George Niang, but if Tobias can do it, I think that George Niang can try to step up and at least improve in that area, right? But when you look at for a bargain and this and that, and let's say he'd probably make more money in free agency than he did with the Sixers when he got here. But if I'm George, sometimes they're coming like a loyalty thing. And what I mean by that is the 76ers, when he left Utah, the 76ers, the deal that he got from there wasn't great from the Sixers, but it was the best one that offer that he had. That's why he came. And it's close to home, close to Boston. He's from Boston area. And I feel like, he moving forward, he's a great fit. And I feel like it will work well for both sides. It'll work well for the Sixers, it'll work well for him. I mean, when you look at it, you say to yourself, how many other shooters do they have? Especially if James Harden comes back. It got to a point where at times when they went to that lineup where they had, the Sixers staggered things and they had a lineup of um, George Niang, Harden, um, DeAnthony Melton, um, uh, Jalen McDaniels, and all that. And George became a sharp shooter, a guy who excelled well. Paul Reed was in that lineup as well. So I feel like he's a guy that the 76ers need to move forward with. He had like a career year last year. He did a lot of great things. I think he brings value to the team. Now, again, the thing is, like I keep saying over and over again, he needs to improve his defense. He does. But I feel like, and he needs to lose a little weight. But I feel like this offseason should be big for him. I like to see what it looks like coming back. Um, but I do think that right now, George can make that step. And again, I'm not saying he's going to be a lockdown defender. But I think if he sheds a little LBs and he does what he's supposed to do, I think that George Niang can do kind of sort of like what Tobias Harris did and become a really reliable defender. I do. I believe that he can. So to me, this is what I think the 76ers need to do is bring George back. That should become a priority after you know what you're going to do with James and all these other guys. You bring George Niang back. And I think because this team, let's face it, this team was a squad that they were close. They were, but they were far. Like it was weird. Like I didn't think the Sixers had a championship window. They could have. I didn't think they were like a. I shouldn't say championship window. I didn't feel as if that this was a championship caliber team, right? But they were one of the best teams in the East. And I feel like with a new coach, with a couple of things here and there, guys getting in better shape, guys playing better, a new different scheme, I think that they can be one of those squads, right? Who can contend. But I also feel like George Niang was a key contributor to their success. And it will be great for him to come back and try to help him out and see what he can do and they can do moving forward. right? I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel, right? Make your way to FanDuel because right now new customers can get a no sweat first bet up to $2,000, $2,500, right? That's $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win, right? Visit fanduel.com/locked on and get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. It's fanduel.com /locked on. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm telling y'all, do that today, people. Definitely do that today. So we talked about George Niang. We talked about how this draft isn't really, it doesn't feel like a draft, right? It just doesn't. But now I want to talk to y'all about Jalen McDaniels. So Jalen McDaniels is a guy who the 76ers picked up that you guys know about that. They picked him up um, like at the trade deadline. It was part of a four-team trade. Um, they got him from the Charlotte Hornets and with the person who they sent out, and part of that trade was Matisse Thybulle. Matisse went to the Portland Trail Blazers, right? The thing about that whole trade was Jalen was supposed to be an upgrade. They wanted him to be a 3 and D. They wanted him to be a guy who can, lock down people. They wanted him to be a guy who can make shots. Now, the thing is, I felt like Jalen was in a kind of sort of a bad spot. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Matisse Thybulle is one of the better defenders in the league. Matisse Thybulle should have been an all league performer for the third, all defensive performer for the third year in a row. But the Sixers just didn't play him enough, right? Um, Wanted a great one. They lost a lot when they let him go. Now, the thing is, the Sixers wanted Jalen to take up for him, but he's not in that category. They also wanted him to be a guy who can knock down shots. And I'm going to tell you, he can shoot the ball now. He can shoot it, pure shot. But the problem was that where he came from with Charlotte, he was used to handling the ball, doing things with the ball. Here, it was more like get in the corner, get out the way, and when we give you the ball, make a shot, right? But they also wanted him to guard elite offensive players. Well, he's not in that category of Matisse. So it got to a point where in the playoffs, he fell out of favor of Doc Rivers. He was out of the rotation, at the end of the season, of the postseason. When they played Boston towards the end, games 4, 5, 6, he was out of the rotation. 7. But I feel like when you got rid of Matisse, you said at that particular time that this was a guy that you wanted to bring back. Now, when we look at it, we talk about financial. The same thing with George Niang. Here's a guy that you can give him money because you have his bird rights right now. Here's a guy in the right situation. He's 6'9", he's long. You look at the coach, Nick Nurse. These are the type of guys that he has who can play multiple positions and excel. So I feel like he fits perfectly in the new scheme that Nick Nurse is going to bring. Guy that can come in and can do a lot of things. To me, he reminds me of Chris Boucher, another guy who was around 6'9", who long arms, who could do a lot of different things, play multiple positions. But I feel like he's more athletic than Chris Boucher, right? So he can do more, and I feel like he's going to be a perfect fit for the Sixers. So when you look at it, to me, he's another priority. Now, the thing is, I'm pretty sure, like, Jalen, it has to be one of those things where he sits down with the coach. He has a nice long talk with him. He figures out what they really want to do with him, and vice versa before he decides. Because I'm pretty sure there's going to be other opportunities for him. Right? He was a guy. before he was traded, they felt like maybe he could get paid. Charlotte did. Charlotte didn't want to pay him because they knew he was going to get paid. So it was one of those things where I'm pretty sure, there's going to be some other teams out there that may come at him, see what they want. And Charlotte didn't want to pay him, but they didn't want to lose him. So that's why they traded him, right? They traded him so they could get some assets back in exchange. But I feel like he'll be a perfect fit for the Sixers moving forward. So here we go. The recap. He is a perfect fit. Niang's a perfect fit. And the 76ers basically, this just doesn't feel right, man. I'm telling you, it just doesn't feel right not having any draft picks and not having the buzz that they used to have in the past. I want to thank y'all for listening and have a blessed day. Peace.